I'm Bradley Hutchkins, 42 male. 6 months ago, my net worth was $4.7 million. I had a flagship Mercedes in the garage of my Westlake Hills mansion, and my 10-year-old son, Colton, told everyone his dad was his hero. Today, I'm wearing torn jeans and standing in front of the Samsung headquarters in Austin, holding a deed that says I own the land underneath their entire $1.6 billion facility. The security guard thinks I'm crazy, and honestly, I wouldn't blame him. But I'm about to prove that sometimes you have to lose everything to find the fortune that was hidden all along. Before this story unfolds, I'd love to connect with you. Please let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is in your corner of the world. It's amazing to see how far these stories can travel. Life was perfect, or at least it looked that way. I'd inherited a single used car lot from my father, Roland, and in 15 years, I'd built it into an empire of 3 luxury dealerships. I wasn't just selling cars, I was selling the lifestyle I lived. My flagship showroom was a temple of German engineering. I knew every spec, every torque ratio. My sales manager, Lewis, used to clap me on the shoulder after I'd close a 6-figure deal and say, "Bradley, you've got the magic touch. You could sell water to a drowning man." My father had been the cautious one. He ran one location, kept modest profits, and avoided risk. When he passed, I leveraged everything. I bought 2 more locations, switched exclusively to high-end luxury, and the money rolled in faster than I could count it. My son Colton would visit the showroom on Saturdays, sitting in the driver's seats of cars worth more than most houses. "Dad, when I grow up, I want to sell cars just like you," he told me. "We can change the sign to Hutchkins and Son."
What?
That was the last good Saturday. The collapse was fast and brutal. The luxury market shifted overnight. Tesla opened a massive showroom nearby, and 2 of my biggest German brands started pushing direct-to-consumer sales. I was over-leveraged, sitting on $300,000 of unsold inventory just as an economic downturn hit. "We need to liquidate," Lewis warned, his face pale as he looked at the spreadsheets. "Take the loss and rebuild." "No," I insisted, my pride too big to fail. "I just need 1 more month, 1 big commercial client." That client never came. The banks called in their loans. The dealerships, my life's work, were sold at auction for pennies on the dollar. Cars I'd paid $90,000 for went for $30,000. My S-Class was repossessed. The mansion went into foreclosure. And before the ink was dry on the bankruptcy papers, my wife, Meredith, filed for divorce. The divorce wasn't just about the money, it was about the lies. Meredith found texts from my accountant warning me about the inventory problems. I'd been hiding the financial troubles for months, taking bigger and bigger risks to keep up the appearance of success. "You're gambling it all away," she screamed, throwing my phone across our Italian marble kitchen island. It shattered against a framed photo of our family. My father's money bought this house. My connections got Colton into his school. In court, the judge was swift. The house went to Meredith. She proved it was bought with her inheritance. My hidden debts were ruled as marital fraud. "Custody is awarded to Mrs. Hutchkins," the judge announced. "Mr. Hutchkins will have supervised visitation once a month." "Supervised?" I stood up so fast my lawyer had to pull me down. "Your Honor, I'm his father." The judge looked at me over his glasses. A father who hid devastating financial decisions from his family. Stability is paramount for the child. Outside the courthouse, Meredith stood by her lawyer's Bentley, her designer sunglasses hiding her eyes. "Enjoy poverty, Bradley," she said, her voice sharp and loud enough to carry across the parking lot. "Maybe now you'll learn what real work feels like. Colton needs a provider, not a gambler with delusions of grandeur." She got into what used to be our family SUV and drove away. Colton's face was pressed against the back window, his hand raised in a small, confused wave. I waved back, standing alone in my last good suit next to my brother's borrowed pickup truck. Everything was gone. My wife, my son, my business, my home. I was nothing. My brother Vance saved me from total ruin. He's an electrician, the responsible one, paid off truck, steady work. He'd watched my rise and fall without judgment. He got me a job. "It's honest work," he said, handing me a pair of work gloves. $50 an hour cash. You'll be cleaning out foreclosed houses with Dwayne's crew. Just show up on time and keep your mouth shut about who you used to be." The houses were monuments to other people's failures. We found wedding albums in moldy closets, kids' drawings still stuck to refrigerators. Every house felt like a mirror of my own downfall. "Hey, college B." "Oi," Dwayne, the crew leader, called out on my first day. "Vance says you're good for heavy lifting. Hope those soft hands can handle it." I kept my head down and worked. I hauled trash, tore out carpets, and tried not to think about my old life. My Rolex was long gone, sold months ago just to pay for my tiny studio apartment. 3 weeks in, we were assigned a property on the east side of town. It was an old 1960s ranch house boarded up and overgrown. Previous owner was some kind of hoarder, Dwayne said, kicking the stuck door open. Died with no clear heirs. Lawyers have been fighting over it. Basement's full of old office junk, just trash it all. He sent me to the basement. The stairs creaked under my weight and the smell of mildew and old paper was overwhelming. The room was lined with a dozen metal filing cabinets. I started pulling open drawers, tossing yellowed folders of 1970s tax returns and old business letters into trash bags. It was the entire life of a man named Harrison Aldrich, reduced to paper nobody wanted. I was on the third cabinet when I froze. The label on the drawer, barely readable under a thick layer of dust, said, Client Files, Hutchkins Properties, 1958-1965. My hands were shaking. I yanked the drawer open. Inside were carbon copies of land deeds, oil lease agreements, and geological surveys. And on every single page, I saw a familiar forward-slanting signature, EMTT Hutchkins, my grandfather. Grandpa EMTT was a legend in our family, mostly for his failures. He'd owned 7 businesses and lost 6 of them. My father, Roland, always said, your grandpa could sell ice to Eskimos but couldn't hold on to $1 if it was glued to his palm. I only knew him from summers at his ranch. He'd point at empty fields and tell me, Bradley boy, land is the only thing God ain't making more of. Remember that. I kept digging through the files. I found purchase agreements for lots all over Austin, most sold at a loss. I found failed oil speculations. It was a perfect archive of my grandfather's bad bets, all filed away by this Harrison Aldrich. Then I found a different folder. It was newer, manila-colored, and the label was written in faded typewriter ink, E. Hutchkins/B. Hutchkins Trust, S. 1961. My heart hammered against my ribs. I opened it. Inside was a deed for 127 acres of undeveloped land on the far outskirts of Austin. Attached was a trust document naming me, Bradley Emmett Hutchkins, as the sole beneficiary, with the trust transferring to me automatically upon my 40th birthday. I stuffed the folder inside my shirt and ran out of the basement, telling Dwayne I needed air. That night, I spread the documents on the floor of my studio apartment. I used my neighbor's spotty Wi-Fi to type the property coordinates from the deed into Google Maps. The satellite image loaded, and I couldn't breathe. The pin didn't land on an empty field or a suburban neighborhood. It sat directly, perfectly, in the center of the Samsung Austin semiconductor facility. My phone rang, shattering the silence. It was Meredith. Bradley, you missed your support payment. It's $300. You can't even manage that. God, you're pathetic. Colton asked why you don't come to his games. I told him you're too busy. Maybe it's just better if you fade out of his life. She hung up. I stared at the screen, her words ringing in my ears, then back at the image of the Samsung plant. I immediately called Griffin Yarrow. We were roommates at UT. Now he was one of the best property lawyers in Texas. Griff, it's Bradley Hutchkins. Brad, man, I heard about everything. I'm so sorry. What's up? It's 10:30 at night. I'll pay your emergency rate. I need you to verify a deed. Right now. An hour later, I was in his high-rise office, laying the dusty documents on his polished desk. He put on his glasses and started reading. His expression went from skeptical to intrigued to completely stunned. Bradley, this is legitimate, he said, typing furiously. The taxes have been paid annually, automatically, from a trust account EMTT set up in 1961. So I own the land under Samsung, I whispered. Hold on, he said. It gets crazier. You own the land, but Samsung has been paying ground rent to a management company. Hutchkins Property Management LLC, established in 1996, the same year Samsung broke ground. He turned the monitor. Your father, Roland, was the sole member. My father, he knew this whole time. He'd watched my dealerships fail, watched me lose my house, and never said a word. How much, Griff? Griffin's face went pale. Brad, you need to sit down. The account has $47 million in it, and the lease is up for renewal next month. $47 million. My phone buzzed with a text from Colton. Dad, Mom says we can't go to the Rangers game anymore. Is it true? I looked at the text, then at the number on the screen. Griff, I said, my voice cold and clear. File the ownership TRA. NS for papers. Tonight, I want what's mine. We worked until 3 a.m. Griffin filed 17 different documents, transferring the land and the $47 million into my name. By dawn, it was done. The next morning, I drove Vance's rusted pickup truck to the Samsung headquarters. I walked up to the main entrance, wearing my paint-stained work clothes. The security guard, Jerome, stepped in front of me. "Sir, deliveries are around back." "I'm not delivering anything. My name is Bradley Hutchkins. I own this land." He laughed, not a cruel laugh, but the kind you give someone who's lost touch with reality. "Sure you do, buddy. Now please, let's not make this difficult." "Call your legal department," I said, my voice calm. "Tell them Bradley Hutchkins is here about the ground lease." He rolled his eyes but made the call, probably to humor me. I watched his expression shift from annoyance to confusion to panic. "Mr. Hutchkins, I apologize. Someone will be right down." Less than 5 minutes later, a woman in a sharp business suit, Director Park, hurried into the lobby, flanked by 2 lawyers. She looked like she hadn't slept. "Mr. Hutchkins," she said, forcing a smile and extending her hand. "I apologize for the confusion. We've been trying to reach you. Your father's management company was difficult." "My father's dead," I said. "I'm here now. We need to discuss the renewal terms." "Of course, please, right this way," she said, gesturing toward the executive elevators. "Actually," I said, pulling out my phone to text Colton back, "we are definitely going to that game, son." I looked back at Director Park, whose smile was now frozen in place. "Before we discuss the renewal, I'd like to discuss why you've been underpaying rent for 2 decades. My lawyer found some interesting discrepancies. It seems Samsung expanded this facility by 40% without adjusting the lease payments to match." Director Park's face went white. "Perhaps," she stammered, "we should continue this conversation in the boardroom." "Perhaps we should," I replied. 6 months later, I was in a different courtroom. This time, I was the one in the nice suit, and Meredith's lawyer was the one sweating. "Mrs. Hutchkins," the judge said, "your original custody arrangement was based on Mr. Hutchkins' financial instability. That situation has, clearly changed." "This is ridiculous," Meredith shouted, jumping to her feet. "He was cleaning houses, he's a janitor, this is drug money." "I sold the land back to Samsung," I interrupted calmly, addressing the judge. "For $312 million, it's all documented." The courtroom was silent. The judge nodded slowly. "I am granting joint custody 50-50 effective immediately. Mr. Hutchkins has demonstrated the persistence to rebuild his life." After I picked up Colton from school in a modest, used Honda, he ran to the car and stopped. "Dad, Mom said you're rich now. Why are we in this?" I opened his door. "Get in, buddy. Let me tell you about your great-grandpa EMTT. He knew how to make money, but he also knew how to lose it. Real wealth isn't about what you drive. It's about what you own that no one can take away." "Is that why you and Mom aren't together?" he asked. "Your mom and we got caught up in looking successful instead of being successful. I didn't buy a mansion. I bought a nice 4-bedroom house with a yard big enough for the dog Colton always wanted. I also bought a small commercial building and turned it into a youth center, teaching kids the financial literacy I wish I'd had. My brother Vance helps me run it. I still can't believe it," he said last week. "You found a fortune cleaning a toilet." "No," I told him. "Grandpa found it 60 years ago. He just needed to wait for the world to catch up. I think my father kept it secret because he knew me. He knew I would have gambled it away. I had to lose everything to finally understand its value." Last week, I got a letter from Meredith. She's broken up with her surgeon boyfriend and wants to discuss reconciliation. I keep that letter in a drawer, right next to Grandpa EMTT's original deed. It's a good reminder that some things are worth holding on to and others are better left in the past.